constantly hybridized in labs just because, especially with the rust problem, like people are trying to find a way around these environmental
The diseases
issues.
and
Yeah.
bugs and things.
But generally speaking, they've been hybrids that sacrifice quality and taste for yield or resistance. But it's getting better and better. Colombia is a good example because there was a variety down there called Castillo
Okay.
and one called Colombia.
Okay.
It was promoted by the Colombian Coffee Federation, and
And
most
that
of
was
us.
genetically, or no.
It's a hybrid.
Hybrid.
Yeah, so they just kind of fuse things together and grow them, and most of us buyers in the specialty world would avoid that for years, and only up until about 3 or 4 years ago, that coffees are really amazing. And what they're saying is that they didn't know the proper ripeness point. They need to be much riper. So I don't know.
I mean, is it like single malt liquors where people, or like so-called single origin, that expression I've heard?
Yeah, single origin is to know where it came from and who grew it and the truth about the sort of interaction with the individuals that.
Are most of the big name brands like all blends?
Yeah.
So whether it's Folgers or whatever, it's not one coffee.
No, I mean, if Starbucks has a single origin, it's going to have to be a pretty big farm. They're a giant company. So
So it's almost impossible to really do single origin if you're doing phenomenal number of volume.
yeah, you can do what would be called like a regional blend, something like that. But to do a single estate, single farm, it's pretty tough.
Okay, is it my imagination or is organic coffee less bitter?
There is not a correlation on that for me. I've had a lot of good organic coffees. Some coffees that we'll buy are organic, but we are careful on that because, we buy organic food a lot in our house. But in my visits to coffee farms for the past 20 plus years, I've seen so many situations that are like obviously not organic.
Claiming to be?
Yes, and I fear it. I don't trust it. So what we do is forge that relationship and work individually with the producer. And if the producer has a certain kind of year where they need to use like a fertilizer a couple times throughout the year or whatever, which would negate your organic certification,
I see.
I'm okay with that. Because
I
I
see.
eat in restaurants that are
Of course.
really careful with their ingredients and stuff, but they may not be certified organic restaurants.
Of course.
And to hold people who are in essentially extreme poverty and or financial desperation to keep that certification, I don't hold them to that.
And do they go ahead and utilize like the American standards, like you see the certification on a package in America, the organic and certified, whatever? Is that identical standard? What's held
Yeah.
in those countries?
It's international. There's a few. There's OCAA, which is Organic Crop Improvement Association. It's just that it's a once a year visit, in the tall mountains of Nicaragua. I would go around with my friend Javier, the one you were talking about, and we would drive around. He'd be like, "Dude, that place is certified organic. There's no way in hell they're organic. Can't do it."
And what makes the difference in, I mean, sorry but
Well,
organic, what's it?
Yeah, it's
Really
no synthesized fertilizers
Okay.
Or pesticides?
or pesticides or herbicides. So it's
Herbicide.
no chemicals. So anything that you do on your farm, fertilizer has to be natural.
Okay.
Could be from chickens, or a lot of people use composted coffee fruit, which is very effective.
Right.
But it's often like almost enough, but not quite. And with the rust going on, pesticides and herbicides they're poisonous. They cause cancer. So the other side of that coin is that these are things that were made illegal in the U.S. back in the 50s, and we still make that
Pump 'em
shit,
up.
and we sell it to them. Like it's
I have read this.
But
It's insane.
Wouldn't you say like something, because let's say demand might create the non-organic part of things, I guess. Like for example, Starbucks, as much as they want to go organic, their level of demand is probably so much.
Is there
that
enough product to
a small
satisfy
farm
somebody
is
like
not
that?
gonna be able to, I mean, because I would
If
think
they wanted
organic
to?
would be a small farm, right?
I mean, that's where the falsification comes in. Because a producer,
They want to meet that order.
they need to meet that order because they're going to get a premium. But for a producer to be certified, they have to pay a fee, and they have to go 1 year without the certification, but without the benefit of the higher price, and paying the fee. Which, if you're in a situation of extreme financial desperation, it's a no game. Like, you can't do that. So we have tried to go a different route because the size of our company allows us to be able to make that relationship and tell the story.
Mm-hmm.
And then we don't need a third party to tell that story for us. So if you're Seattle's Best or Dunkin' Donuts, yeah, you need a third party to tell you that story. But if Panther Coffee wants to tell you about Finca la Amistad and how Javier does its stuff,
Mm-hmm.
we'll tell the story. And we have that luxury. We're not small, but we're medium. We used to be small,
Mm-hmm.
but we can still tell that story. And
Bottom line, you couldn't even tell the difference between an organically grown bean and an unorganically grown bean.
I mean, in reality, no, I couldn't.
I'm talking taste now. I'm not even talking about the chemical aspects and all of the health things. I just mean, can anyone tell the difference in the taste?
Well, it's interesting you say that because from a kind of agronomical point of view, for taste, what it comes down to ultimately is that the plants need food. And the plants that get food taste better. And if they're organically fertilized or synthetically fertilized, they taste better.
In either case.
You couldn't tell why, but they were fed. And when coffee's flat or boring or not popping,
It didn't have what it needed
didn't
growing.
have enough food. And you can do a soil test to figure out like what it's missing, but it's food. We call it food. It's just these are essentially elements that you can derive from a mix of chicken stuff, compost made by worms. But it's all science. I mean, it's
I one time I went down to my old neighborhood down toward Pinecrest. The guy that owned the Captain's Tavern restaurant, I don't even know if it's still there. Anyway, he had a bit of land, some acreage just a few blocks east, and it was like about 100th Street in US 1. Anyway, I can't remember why I was out there. I knew the guy, and I was out there the day that this truck showed up with a truckload of limestone, and this old wizened-looking guy, probably was my age, but at the time he looked ancient to me, and he was some farmer from Homestead that was giving him a hand on how to grow the best possible strawberries on this little plot of land, and he had ordered this truckload of limestone based on, and I saw him do this myself. He bent down and he put the dirt in his mouth. And he said, "Need some more limestone." And I was like 20-something years old. It was like, damn, you can do that? Have you seen people in the field do that kind of thing where they're actually tasting the dirt?
Yeah.
Really?
Yep. Yeah, and also for processing and figure out how dry a coffee needs to be, they'll take a knife, like pull a knife out of the back of their pocket, take the green coffee bean, cut it, and depending on how high it jumps, it's not dry enough or it's dry enough. Because if it jumps a lot,
Certain
it's got
kind
a lot
of
of spring to it.
tension
Yeah.
or whatever is created.
Just funny
that-
little things.
That's like awesome. That's like knowledge, I guess, on your.
Deep.
Yeah.
That's deep, man.
And also drying coffee, they'll dry. You see pictures, probably you've seen them at Starbucks mostly, but of these patios of drying coffee.
Sure.
So they're in husks, and it's called pergamino or parchment.
Yes,
so those
parchment.
They
I
gotta
read
come
about
off
that.
in the dry mill. It's a beneficio secador, which is the final benefiting of the coffee, to put in bags, take the husks off, color sort it, and screen it like by size. And these guys will take the coffee like this, and based on the way it sounds,
Oh,
it's ready. It's like all
Yeah.
by sound. It's
yeah.
crazy.
No, that's pretty slick, man. That's pretty slick. Yeah, I guess once you got, so many 100,000 hours into something, you can tell by the smell, the sound, the look without, any deep analytics using, instrumentation or whatever,
In just about anything, in any field.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you do have people who are putting spectrographic devices and doing
Yep.
very critical analysis, I'm sure. That
Moisture
it's not,
analysis, color
yeah.
spectrometers. I mean, Brazil's by far and away ahead of the curve on that.
They would have to be. The number I saw in terms of sheer volume was kind of crazy. It's right here.
They're number one.
Well, yeah, and like, okay, so the world, so 25 million small producers rely on coffee for a living worldwide. Okay, so the world total 8.46. I'm guessing that's million. But Brazil is 2.7, and the next closest thing is Mexico with 0.25.
What do you think is the magic of coffee? I mean, it's almost why
It's a
coffee,
caffeine molecule,
it's,
right? I mean, beside the flavor.
I think that. Yeah, I think the flavor is amazing, but the fact that it ties into like a low level addiction and it helps us get our shit done.
Mm-hmm.
It's a work drug.
Shit, that's incredible. Like, I mean, the science behind it is it's a low level addiction. That's basically it.
It's it. And I mean, I worked with food a lot, and the thing I liked about working with coffee is like, it's not on me all the time. Like, when it is.
Oh,
it's
interesting.
Yeah, I just like I love the way coffee smells. I wake up and I want coffee.
Right.
No.
It's just inviting, and
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I'm
As
sure
opposed to napalm in the morning.
yeah, or people drink Red Bull and those big ass iced teas and shit like that. It's like I can't get into that.
No, I can't go there either. Hey, you remember Joel Cola? Speaking of Joel Radio,
Yeah,
and
you were
caffeine.
just mentioning that shit.
I know, just the other day, right?
The other day with Buzz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever drink it?
I've tried it. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Crazy. I think
They
he
should be our
actually
damn
said-
sponsors. Does that company exist?
No, I think they're doing a comeback. I think.
Really?
don't know.
If they can do anything half of what PBR did, they'll be golden.
No, I
Who
think
you
it's
trying
more
it with?
Colty. Huh?
You were trying it with who?
With what?
With Buzz?
Because he mentioned it. Well, we were talking
Just the other day,
about
Monday.
it because he goes Joel Cola, and a lot of people at the beginning when I first started Joel, everyone would say Joel Cola, like
Right.
people in the '90s that
Right.
were familiar with it. And I was like, no, not at all. But I mean, apparently they had marketed it the way it was marketed, but. How
Twice the
funny
caffeine.
Well, it was twice the caffeine, but at the time there was also another. What was the name of that?
That was pre-Red Bull.
It was called cocaine.
No.
That's what they called the energy
No.
drink. Yeah, they used to sell it at fucking.
Let me guess, it
Walgreens.
was made in
And
Miami.
they took it off the shelves for
Was
sure.
it made in Miami?
Yeah, but how crazy though? Like the levels of sugar and all that stuff is just nuts, man. I've never been into that.
Honestly,
stuff.
I'm not into it. I'm not into it. There's some funny, weirdo aftertaste. I don't know if it's from some kind of sugar thing or whatever. Like Red Bull, I honestly can't stand it.
I don't like it.
And why anybody would combine it with like vodka or something. I'm not a vodka drinker, but it just sounds like a compounding of bad things.
I think people like it because they can just drink longer.
It what?
They
Yeah.
can drink longer.
Right.
Like turns a 4-hour night into an 8-hour night.
Oh, I see. So the caffeine is accelerating the ability to just keep drinking alcohol.
I think it's what I don't know. Because
That and the rush, I guess, or I mean, I've never really been into that, but a lot of people just like, man, I drink these and I'm going.
I gave a ride to to a guy from Thailand. I gave him a ride to his hotel, just being a good Miami ambassador. And he and his brother inherited, it's like 100-something-year-old company, but it's like the Red Bull of Thailand. It's something they've been drinking for 100 years from some little bottle, you know.
Really?
By the way, speaking of 100 years in bottles, in my research for the show, I discovered that the U.S. government sued Coca-Cola for the amount of caffeine that was in Coca-Cola in 1917.
Wow.
Did you know that?
Nope.
Absolutely. I'll send you the link. It's absolutely fascinating that people would get up in arms about how much fucking. I mean, this is already 10 years after Coca-Cola had abandoned using cocaine in Coca-Cola. They had already dropped the cocaine for 10 years, and then they were hit with this. Some guy in Washington was like just hell bent on back off of that because caffeine is so dangerous. And yeah, I just learned about that in researching for the show, and it was like, really?
Crazy.
It's funny.
Joel, what do you think? What's your thought on CBD and coffee? I was like,
Oh, wow. I didn't even go there.
We're doing it.
You're doing it.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
All right.
I tried it recently. Somebody brought in some coffee from Texas. It was actually pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, you could. There's a
Can you feel it?
kinda.
In your eye. I felt it in my eyes more than anything.
It's so. It just knocks off the edge. It's
Yeah.
so subtle.
Pretty much.
It's a little bit like a deep breath.
Yeah,
So
but
it takes
what I was-
coffee,
what I
which
was
would
thinking-
normally amp you up,
And
And it
CBD
puts
will
a
drop
bit of
you
a-
down. So it's like you
brings
didn't
the
have a
edge
coffee.
down a notch.
You're pretty much drinking water.
Are you basically zeroing out the fucking effect?
That's what I was saying.
No, it's
now
like-
it's zero.
It like amps you up and then kind of like levels you.
Yeah. I had some, and I mean it was all right, but I was kind of.
What was the brand? Does it have a brand?
On that.
Brand name?
Ooh, I don't remember.
Was it here when they had that crazy?
Yeah,
thing?
that was for
I
CBD.
see.
So you can get like a
CBD, you know, it's like, what?
yeah, you can get like a cold brew with like 7 drops of CBD for a little upcharge. The problem that we're having
At your place?
yeah,
Really?
yeah,
I never knew that.
we're having a
I'm
hard
obviously
time.
not talking to the right baristas.
The auditing of drops of CBD is a little challenging.
Oh, really?
It's just
That's
a little hard
still-
to keep around.
Interesting.
Huh.
So I don't know.
Like legally, I'd say, or yeah, I guess for that.
Just like
Perfect.
it's just such tiny shit, and it's expensive, and I don't know.
Very,
But
very
you know
interesting.
something? Even my uncle's a doctor, and we were like, a friend of his was telling him, he's like, "Hey man, why don't you like start selling medical marijuana?" And
You mean instead of having a radio show?
Huh? No. At his practice,
Oh.
instead of because to be able to prescribe it and all this stuff, you have to go through these licensing things and all this, and it's still frowned upon, like by I guess politicians in general,
All that
you know.
farm
And,
shit, yeah.
and he was actually telling us, my uncle saying like, you know what? It's just imagine them revoking your license for just doing
Right.
something stupid, or
Right.
just hey, here you go, man, and
Right.
it's just still not looked at the right way. I'd say, in different states, I mean, especially
Right.
Florida.
No, it has to be slightly regionally related. Like I'm sure.
Dude, there were people telling me you get your medical card and you go to a dispensary and get it in Florida, which I was like,
Right,
I mean,
I've
that's
heard
kinda
this as
cool.
well.
I mean, we're somewhat advancing versus having the weird tinted car coming into a neighborhood and you're like, well, there goes a drug deal, I guess. I don't know. To me, it's just fascinating. I don't smoke weed, but I'm
Did they just outlaw vaping in like San Francisco or something?
I don't know. I mean,
I mean,
I've always
nicotine
said,
vaping?
dude, if you put something in your lungs, you're doing something. I mean, unless it's oxygen, something's gonna get fucked
Right.
up. I don't care if you tell me it's vapor or if you smoke weed or you smoke cigarettes.
No.
You're affecting something. It's the same as like maybe beer will definitely tear up your liver and kidneys if you.
Hey, by the way, what did you think of this? Because it's when I'm not drinking Panther, that's what I drink.
I mean, it's a dark roast. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with it.
I found it to be the most palatable coffee I've found at a Publix.
Does it taste like dark chocolate a little bit? Like little
A
chocolate?
little bit, yeah, a little bit. And maybe it's my imagination, but I swear to God, organic coffees don't seem to be as bitter to me.
Well, I think the bitterness is the roasting here, because it's going to round out the flavors a lot. So I said I would never do a dark roast, because for us roasters, that's kind of like the
charcoal.
You're going to the dark side.
it's the sellout,
Oh, wouldn't like Cuban coffee be a very burnt
Has to be, right?
Pretty dark.
Espresso, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and then the idea that it's to be whipped with sugar,
Mm-hmm.
with milk or not. But so I just got all these hotel accounts, and all these fucking food and beverage managers were from like Switzerland and France and Spain.
Different, looking for something different.
They cannot have acidity.
Okay.
So I did a blend that was a little closer to that family of like rounded.
And are you trying to match an Italian roast?
It's a
Is
it's
there
a
some
European style, kind of old
okay.
school. We
If
call
there
it
was a name for, I'm just looking for like a name for what they're looking for.
just
No acidity.
old school. Yeah, no acidity. A little bit of roast, a lot of chocolate, sweet, simple, good body, no acidity.
How would you take the acidity out of it?
Roasting,
Oh,
just that final 35 seconds, just kind of like takes it down.
really? And that makes the whole difference, I
Yeah.
guess.
So if you start with a good coffee, it helps. It helps a lot, because a lot of darker roasted coffees don't start with a good coffee.
Mm-hmm.
So you have roast taste, but then you got to add the sugar, because there's nothing really there to kind of stand on.
So a lighter roast, in your opinion, would be a whole lot better, flavor-wise, or what would you?
I like a lighter roast because I feel like I can taste the kind of nuance of the coffee.
And it doesn't affect the caffeine, the
Lighter
level
roast
of
has more
roasting.
caffeine.
What?
Dark roast has less caffeine.
Because you've just toasted it out of the
Yeah,
equation.
but for me, those facts are a little bit clinical. I mean, you drink a couple shots of a dark roast espresso, you're not going to feel much different than if you drink a couple shots of a lighter roasted espresso. It's not like night and day.
Mm-hmm.
But you can measure that the dark roast has a little less caffeine.